Happy Thursday. Yes, it still feels like Monday. I hope you're having a good week. I can see some people are joining. Please use the chat today. Welcome to our session all around SharePoint and Viva and all things employee experience. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. If you're a repeat joiner, yes, we've got a snazzy new webinar platform. It's very green. So welcome. Hello, everybody. Let us know in the chat where you're joining. You can see Karen's joined from Rochester, New Hampshire. Hi, Karen. We've got Thomas from London. Ditto, also repping London today. We've got Kay, who's joining from Singapore. John from Switzerland. Marianne from Denmark. Hello, everyone. Not to be that person talk about the weather, but it's miserable in London today. So I hope everyone else has got a slightly nicer day. Right. Officially 1 minute in, so hopefully that's given you a good chance, everybody, to join. A proper official welcome. I'm really excited to host this session today. I know what you're thinking, SharePoint Viva webinar, some things that don't necessarily sound particularly exciting, but don't you worry. I promise it's going to be a good session. And specifically because I've got two fabulous colleagues with me today. So I'd like to start by introducing our speakers today. Robert, hello. Logan, hello. Could I come to you and give an official introduction? And yes, I have asked them to bring a fun fact, but they kind of vetoed that idea because who wants the pressure of a fun fact? But Robert, over to you for a little introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, everybody. My name is Robert Sika. I am an implementation manager here at Blink. So, once a client joins with us and with them from signature to go live, to have a really impactful launch. Fun fact, I'll say one anyway. I'm a big musical theater fan, and I'm excited for the Tony Awards on Sunday night.
Well, I hope we get some musical theatre puns in today, maybe, Robert.
I'll try to work them in.
I haven't read that. And Logan, over to you. Hello.
Hi, Georgie. Hi, Robert. Logan O'Neill here, solutions consultant at Blink. I help prospects understand the Blink platform and how it can help them solve their business challenges. And I am coming to you today from Alabama.
Glorious. Well, hello. And it looks like we've got lots more people joining as well from across the world. So thank you very much. I guess today's session, obviously you'll all know what we're getting into, but I just wanted to let you know how we're going to structure the session today. So we've decided to come up with some myths that we hear or comments that we hear from customers, prospects, the market generally in this space, battling this conundrum. So we thought we'd officially bring some myths to the table and start debunking them. And we've also had quite a lot of feedback from previous sessions that you don't actually get to see the Blink platform or really have a play. So don't worry, we listen to feedback and we're going to be actually diving into a bit of a demo in today's session as well to really see some of those core features that can play to a more holistic, inclusive employee experience. So if anybody knows me personally, they know that I love a bit of forced fun. So before we get started today into our Microsoft and SharePoint myth debunking, I asked Robert and Logan to do a drawing. And I've said, please, can you draw what you think employee experience looks like or represents? You're not allowed to use AI. It's old school pen and paper. So Logan, I'm coming to you first. Have you done your homework?
I have, Georgie, and I drew a triangle to represent delta, to represent change, because I find that a really good employee experience is always changing and always evolving with the times to stay attuned to employees' needs and wants out of a really good employee experience.
Smart. Thank you, Logan. It's a strong start. You set the bar there. Robert, over to you. What have you drawn during your homework?
Well, I cannot draw to save my life, but I'll show you what I was going for. So if you, oh my gosh. So if you can see this, we have mountains. Actually, oh my gosh. Maybe it's better that you can't see this. We have mountains representing the ebbs and flows of the employee experience. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be easier times. That's inevitable. We can't control that. but we have a smiley face representing a promoter. So I'm a really big advocate of using Net Promoter, typically used for customer experience. Would you recommend this product or service as a metric of employee engagement? Would you recommend your employer as a place to work? So feeling connected, feeling a part of where we're going, despite those ebbs and flows, with that very well drawn sun on the top, having that North Star, those guiding principles and values that everyone is sort of committed to along the way. So that's what I think it should look like ideally.
Amazing. And maybe we should have asked you to do some sort of performance based on musical theatre love. But thank you so much. So we were a bit skeptical how that was going to work with the virtual background. So thank you for hugging your drawing before showing us. Great. So we're going to get into some of these myths and have this discussion with our Blink specialist today. I just want to remind you all that we've got the chat that is open. I think what makes these live events great is that everybody can also share, talk, communicate during the event. So please feel free to do that with your peers during this event. And we've also got Q&A function, obviously. So get any questions in there. We'll try and get to them throughout, as well as any at the end as well. So, like I've said, we're going to be doing some myth busting. So let's get to it. Myth number 1, are you ready? Is everyone has a Microsoft license. So we're reaching everyone. This comes up a lot, right? We're hearing it a lot, and especially in organizations that have got sort of that large frontline workforce. And there can be a bit of an assumption that because Microsoft's in place, communication is sorted, right? We've got the platform, we've got it, we're reaching everyone. But the reality is that the case, especially for different types of workforces? So I really want to talk about the disconnect here between, the licensing and the real world situation, especially when we're sort of making assumptions like that. So my first question to you all to sort of start debunking this myth and this challenge, I guess, that we're hearing is, what are some of these big misconceptions that companies have about their Microsoft licenses and the coverage? And Robert, I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, definitely. Such a seemingly simplistic myth, but there are a lot of assumptions sort of baked into this. Oh, we have Microsoft, we're reaching everyone, we're good to go. So a couple points that I kind of want to make about this is, first of all, I'm a huge advocate and fan of what Microsoft does and what it does well. Part of that being the Office suite. We know that most large complex enterprises are using Microsoft, that Office has been around forever and serves some very tried and true purposes in the enterprise space. So that's fantastic. Now, when we look at some of the assumptions that are made around this, when we have IT stakeholders who see the investment they've made in the Microsoft stack, there is a really great survey done by Gartner a couple years ago that shared, of polled organizations, only 10% of respondents actually felt that they were making the most out of their Microsoft investments. So there's definitely a disconnect between the spending that we see going into M365 and the value that is being realized from that. And some of the reasons why that disconnect does exist, there's a handful. So first of all, we look at an over-reliance on email. So I've spoken to a lot of clients, prospects at employee communications events where their primary mode of reaching their employees is Outlook or it's email. And while I think almost everyone on the call, we're in a group of industry experts, would know this, that's remarkably inefficient for your ability to be agile, to reach your people, to respond quickly to evolving business needs. So that's one point I would say.
Yeah.
The next is at Blink in particular, we talk a lot about field employees, so deskless workers like retail associates, flight attendants, mechanics, servers, making up almost 2/3 of the workforce. And a lot of times this group of employees has a lower level license or might not even have a Microsoft license at all, and is having significant functionality restrictions that are sometimes assumed that most people get, but really only corporate-based employees get that. And finally, when we talk about authentication with platforms like a modern employee experience platform like Blink, if you're not issued a Microsoft 365 email address, it can become difficult to have governed and encrypted access to a platform like ours that is meeting IT governance and standards. So those are some of the reasons I would share that we're not getting the most out of a Microsoft license.
Amazing. Thank you, Robert, for sharing. And I think hopefully you've got some nice examples as well. We're going to pepper in the rest of the session. So look forward to those. And Logan, over to you as well. I know you've got some key things to note here, especially in this myth around this assumption around, well, everyone has a license, so everybody's included, everybody's reached.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with what Robert pointed out as those key points there. And I would say that oftentimes being in a desk-based environment, it's very easy to think Microsoft is covering everything. So if that's what you're finding that's occurring within your organization and you want to sort of expand that lens, well, let's think about the front line. Let's think about those deskless employees that might not be being reached because they in fact, don't have a Microsoft license or don't have an email, is ask people, what was their first job? Did they ever work a part-time job? Because that'll connect them back with that experience of the frontline or deskless employee, and really challenge them to think, imagine using Microsoft in that role. Imagine if you had to use Microsoft as a lifeguard or as a hotel employee, as a retail employee. And I think that can create some empathy and understanding in terms of that ease of access and what typically that employee experience demands from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess my last question as well is really, I'd like to understand a bit around what's the risk here with this assumption? What are you missing out on? What's the risk to organizations? Because I know it will get to the point of it's fine for now. So what's the real risk here of this assumption?
I'd say,
or Logan, go for it, jump in.
Sure. I would say the risk is if you're not reaching everyone has an impact on the business. Everyone has an impact, and especially those that are frontline and deskless, those are the individuals that are having that real direct connection with a customer. So you're really missing out on the opportunity to connect them with the mission so that they can pass along that excitement about the company to the customer and impact the business at large.
Definitely. And Robert, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so if we're not reaching everyone, we're risking employee engagement. And I know employee engagement can kind of feel like an elusive topic, but when we start to connect it to metrics that senior leaders are looking at, like employee retention, recruitment costs, even things like internal theft, this can have a very measurable impact on the business. I think most importantly, the ability to attract and retain a really competitive workforce that's going to be strong in critical thinking, problem solving, breaking down silos. And we're losing those people if we're not reaching them.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just wanted to go quickly to the chat. We've had a couple of questions come in. Shana, you've asked if the session will be recorded and shared. Yes, absolutely. Everything will be available on demand if you can't join us for the rest of the session or you want to share it. Yes. And James is also asking for a bit of clarification around the myth of Microsoft as in covering everything. Do we mean specifically Viva Engage or do you mean the Office applications? Logan, did you want to just specify and add some clarity there?
Yes, as this first myth we're talking about with everyone has a Microsoft license, so we're reaching everyone, we're specifically covering the Microsoft license that would allow employees to authenticate into various applications. It could be Viva Engage, it could be Office applications, whatever the scope is for your business, but the real myth is that everyone has a Microsoft license, and that might just be thought as the truth, but in fact, everyone might not have that Microsoft license, even though it's such the norm for those that are typically engaging with the Microsoft applications.
Thank you very much. And just as I completely forgot, we've got polls today. And I would love to ask you all, like, what brings you to the session today? I got excited because we were doing homework and drawings, but we've also got a poll going on today. So thank you. And James, I hope that answers your question. Super. And you said, yes, it does. So that's great. Super duper. Right. I'm getting on to myth number 2 after our poll. And for those of you that have joined us before, yes, we've got a very snazzy new webinar platform. So the poll's just launched here. We'd love for you all to join in and engage with that just so we can understand. Please continue to use the chat to share any use cases, ideas, questions. And we've also got a Q&A box as well. Okay, are we ready for myth number 2? I was going to do a drum roll, but it feels way too dramatic. Apologies if you hear any more noise. My side, our entire company, all hands has just kicked off in another room. I've asked everybody to silent clap today, but who knows if they will remember to do that. So myth number 2 is we don't need a comms tool. We have Microsoft. Now, we've brought this to the table today is because I think it's one that hits a bit of a nerve, especially for any comms, engagement, HR colleagues, maybe more on the call today. And this is because you've probably identified a need for a real engagement platform, a real communication platform, maybe something more modern, more social, and IT, or maybe the team that manages the Microsoft license might have pushed back and said, we've got Microsoft, like, what's the problem here? Microsoft's been built for productivity. So we kind of want to get into this and debunk some of this, because I know a lot of you will understand the need if we've just highlighted some of the risk around trying to build culture and engagement in one place rather than, you know, it being a bit of a variety and different experience for people. So let's unpack that a bit more and understand how, I guess, comms and IT can get a bit more aligned. So, Robert, to you first, what do you think is the disconnect? And why is it so common when it comes to sort of tool selection?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I also want to acknowledge the great question asked in the poll is sort of where in the Microsoft 365 stack are we talking about? Because it's obviously very broad in scope. I think this myth, we don't need a comms tool, we have Microsoft, is very often referring to SharePoint, first of all. So when I say Microsoft is really good at what it does, SharePoint is a fantastic document management and collaboration platform. It's great for storing documents. It's great for finding documents. I think we can sort of drive this myth is the very different perspective that an IT stakeholder, who's someone I have a lot of respect for, and someone having more of an impactful role in field engagement and strategic communications. Sometimes I think from the perspective of IT, well, if you can find the policy on SharePoint and it's there, that's all we need to do, right? But again, employee engagement, field communications, this is a truly cross-functional venture. In fact, the only time I've seen it done really, really well is when all areas of the business are somehow represented in the designing, building, and rollout of the platform. So when you start to look at it that way, and again, I was speaking about this earlier, does everyone feel connected to the vision and purpose? Can they find what they're looking for really quickly? Are we using technology to reflect our culture and break down silos? That's a very different question than can a policy be found on SharePoint. So that's one of the first items I'd bring up.
Yeah, and Robert, thank you. I feel like you're being a very good speaker, and we're not here to bash Microsoft at all. It has a great place, plays a huge role in a lot of organizations, but I think it's getting those nuances right, like you've just acknowledged. It's a tool that delivers so well in those productivity areas, and as a maybe strategic communicator or someone that specializes in engagement, you understand where those gaps are. So thank you for acknowledging that. We're not here just to moan about Microsoft, because that's absolutely not the aim today. But Logan, how about you? I'd love to understand some of the themes you're seeing, especially around this disconnect and why this is happening.
Yeah, I think employees are looking for a space that they want to gravitate towards that incorporate some of those elements that they're seeing in their day-to-day lives as consumers of social media in the market. So if employees are used to utilizing Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, they're expecting that type of similar experience in the workplace as they are in their day-to-day lives. And that's what they're comfortable navigating. So it's very easy from an employee experience perspective to gravitate towards applications that replicate that type of quick hit information for them in a way that feels really, really natural.
And I think natural is that key there as well. And I think we're going to get into some of more of the user experience and consumer experience as well. But I think that's a key word in terms of what is natural to that person, and that not being a uniformed experience across the business as well. So I just want to dive in a little bit here and understand like more around features, like what matters most. If you're a comms leader, engagement leader, and you're trying to build a case here around a platform that's really going to deliver a better experience for a diverse workforce or a dispersed workforce? What really matters? What features really matter? Robert, this is question number one.
Can take a start on that one. So when we're thinking about this sort of, again, this different category than the legacy internet that looks like it was made with Windows XP or SharePoint, which generally isn't a place that people really want to be, right? So what are the features of this modern new category that's going to solve for all of these challenges that we're talking about? One is it should be highly social. It should replicate the social experiences that users know and love from the consumer grade interactions they have every day with X, Threads, even Facebook, whatever the social media platform of your choosing is. Should have really dynamic, modern content types that can serve all the different ways that your people prefer to be reached and to be communicated to. It should allow, using really great people-centered design, the ability to build relationships across retail stores or even countries with your peers. It should be highly discoverable. It should remove friction, right? So whatever I'm doing, if it's a retail transaction or if I'm on the field doing remote healthcare services, I should be able to really quickly, without it being frustrated, locate the information that I need in a digestible way. That sort of implies a really great mobile experience, really great and sophisticated search, out of the box integration. So it's maximizing, if I'm a CIO, all of the investments I've made in my tech stack. So those are just a couple of the features that should be there.
And I feel what we're starting to curate here, a bit of a Robert bucket list, aren't we? A criteria. For what you should be looking out for. Robert, thank you. Logan, how about you? From this feature perspective, what are the core things? What's on Logan's bucket list that we need to be looking at to hit these goals around a more modern experience in a platform?
Yeah, well, I really liked what Robert said about removing friction. And I think one of the key areas I want to dive into is removing friction around connecting. So being able to comment and engage and really feel connected to others in the company, whether that is commenting on different posts or chatting with other colleagues where you need to get information quickly from them or quickly to them, or removing friction as it relates to joining groups of social interest to you, or even access to different integrations. I know we talked about there's some amazing things that Microsoft does well. And so removing friction to get access to those documents that Microsoft is hosting. We'll see some of that in the demonstration as well today in terms of those integrations that remove friction.
Little teaser there for Logan's exciting demo on integrations. Can't wait. I don't know if anybody ever saw the TV show Blind Date, but I feel this is what's happening right now. I'm like, this is question to number one. Thank you both. And that's a great question. And I know we didn't want to dive necessarily into features. So I think you took that both quite well in terms of not diving into real specifics, but more themes that we need to be looking at. And lastly, in this myth and, around this disconnect between comms and IT is, have you got any advice for comms teams here navigating this strong pushback on we have Microsoft? That goes to question, candidate number two. Logan, question to you first.
Yes, in terms of navigating that conversation of pushing back to we already have Microsoft, I would encourage others to understand really where the gaps are and really what their requirements are to create an engaging employee experience, and outlining that clearly, because I think anytime you can get clear on what you're looking to achieve versus what current systems are delivering is when you have the opportunity to really make the most impact and make those expectations clear with others across your organization.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Logan. And Robert, how about you? Any advice for peers and comms leaders?
Yep, I have a couple thoughts here, and I see Laura's message. Teams is the only app you need for everyone. We hear that quite a bit. So and I'm a comms person. I have a lot of respect for people. I don't have the technical aptitude to become a CIO, right? But what's important to them, right? You're in internal comms, you're in HR, you're responsible for a more holistic employee experience, and you have to kind of build this business case. So what's important to a CIO? I think a lot of the times, again, and I mentioned this, it's maximizing your investments in your tech stack. We have seen an excessive proliferation of investment in SaaS platforms. And I see this assumption from time to time again. You throw money at a platform and immediately expect there to be a change in behavior or optimization. And all you've really done there, if you're not doing it with intention, is you bought software. So one of the ways you can maximize your investments is reducing the application switching that a user needs to do. And sometimes even just quickly showing that ability. And it's a really simple integration. And like, it's not the most complex integration, but it's really high impact. Is can you access all of your applications in a single tool that becomes sort of the digital home of the organization? That's a huge one. In practice, the amount of time that can save is significant. Another is looking at. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Georgie.
No, crack on. I was just going to go to the questions because I feel that's answered some of the questions. Yeah. Thomas and Joanna are asking, because we've been speaking about some of the more modern social features, and that works great if you've got, a large young demographic, as well as your stakeholders that you're trying to get buy-in if they're not naturally of that generation or defaulting to great social tools. But I feel like you sort of answered that, Robert, in terms of how you show other use cases outside people feeling that they need a more consumer grade experiences, even showing another of the pain points, which I'm sure one of your executive feels as well, in terms of just access and switching between platforms and authenticating multiple times, in terms of that pushback. But I don't know if Logan or Robert, you've got anything to add in terms of, catering to different generations. Nothing. I've got a little nugget to add if not.
I would just add that in addition to the mobile application that is set up in a really modern social way, yes, the web-based, desktop-based experience emulates that to a degree, but it is on a more familiar format for those that might be used to engaging with a more traditional internet. So they're going to find similar types of navigation in something that's familiar as well.
Absolutely. And I've been at a show this week, a communications summit, and people ask this a lot because, I think they see all these great, sexy, snazzy platforms, and it definitely appeals to younger generations. But it's also just building basic utility into this platform. What is important to this person? What do they need to do their job? It's not just trying to entice them with all the modern social experience. It's just making that seamless. Blink works with a lot of transport organizations. A lot of those executives maybe are older, maybe have come from being a bus driver on the front line now as an executive, and they can see the power of just being able to access your payslip, your holiday, how you order your uniform, all of these things just through one platform. So I think it's just understanding those use cases to take to your executives or to build in your platform for your workforce generation as well. Just to give my own sense there in I'm not a speaker, but yeah, there you go. Great. We're going to crack on with myth number 3. Are we ready? Is with Microsoft.
So dramatic.
I know. I told you this is a bit of forced fun. With Microsoft, we can just set it and forget it. So I think there's a myth, I guess, a belief that once you've got Microsoft and it's switched on, job done, you can walk away with it. But in reality, maintaining these tools can actually take significant time, tech resources, ongoing efforts, developments, etc. And I want to explore the ownership a bit here and why maybe a modern comms platform can shift the burden a little bit. So Robert, my question to you is, what kind of ongoing maintenance does Microsoft typically require during and after implementation?
Yeah. So if we kind of think of stages of maturity and understanding an employee experience platform, like we have step 1 is we think a legacy intranet like SharePoint is going to cover it. Hopefully we're And I know everyone on this call sees that it's not, right? So step two is, okay, we have a gap between SharePoint, maybe Viva Engage, depending on how, probably Viva Engage. How do we address that? And sometimes the inclination is to use in-house developer resources, right? You can build significantly on top of SharePoint. This is just remarkably inefficient, not sustainable, or scalable. As soon as there's something that you sort of hear of in the space from a purpose-driven platform like ours that you might want to build, you're building it, it's released, and now you hear what the next trend is and you might be behind. So just sort of underscoring that while SharePoint is highly customizable, there's a significant amount of in-house developer resources to make it even close to being a contender with a true employee experience platform. Georgie, I think you're muted.
No call is complete without someone accidentally being on mute.
I know.
I was just saying, I think you've seen that a lot firsthand, Robert, haven't you, in your role? So thank you for sharing. And Logan as well. You know, you see this throughout a process as a solutions consultant. So what does this maintenance look like, and as well as what role is IT really playing in maintaining a platform like this?
Yes, absolutely. So typically, during the process of exploration of an employee experience platform, we hear from IT, does this require FTE support? Because that's what they're used to providing when it comes to different tools within the Microsoft ecosystem. And with Blink, we certainly need IT's help during the implementation process. They're going to play a key role, but after that, they're going to be able to get back to their day job. And it's a system that can be maintained really well by those that are communicating, internal communicators, HR leaders, and other leaders around the business based on that foundation that's set up during implementation.
Definitely. I'm enjoying both Robert and Logan's Brittany mics today as well. Thank you, Ed, for showing up. And I guess lastly here, and I know you've got a couple of other things you want to cover on this myth, is like, how does the user experience really suffer if the comms team aren't the ones making changes in the platform and able to sort of grow with the platform? What does that impact the user experience ish-wise? Robert, coming to you first.
Yeah, look, when we're talking about just user experience as a concept, we're looking at the end user's relationship in totality with the product itself, how they're feeling about it, their delight or their frustration, and all of the use cases that they might be encountering it for. Yeah. So and again, much respect for IT as a profession, highly so. But if only that perspective is being considered, that is not representing in totality. It's not comprehensive of the ways that people actually work, of the context in which they communicate, that they locate information, of who's authoring that communication, how that content is being audited and governed and regulated. So that can have more so than any platform that you select. Forget about the platform. If only that perspective is being represented, that has a significantly adverse impact on the user experience.
On that, yeah, absolutely. Logan, I can see you aggressively nodding away.
Yes, I was going to say, I agree with what Robert was saying. And I also think if comms has to consistently interface with IT when they need anything and everything, it's not going to allow them to be as nimble and not going to allow them to get the information out when it needs to get out, when it's going to be most captivating and engaging to the employees. So I think having a space where comms can be self-empowered and more nimble to get information out to employees helps that employee experience, because they're getting that fresh information when it's top of mind, when it's really relevant. And I also saw a great call out in the chat from Emma that navigating the new features in Microsoft tools is also a nightmare for IC teams. We're here to help people know where and how to find things, but it's difficult when there are multiple ways that keep changing. And so what I've seen at Blink is that if there's going to be a change in the product, we really inform our customers. Our customer success managers help navigate that change. So I've seen that be something that's easily overcome in a SaaS-based platform like Blink.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably quite a nice little segue to our final myth before we dive into the platform. And Dan, I see your comment and your question, and I'm hoping that the demo that Logan's going to go into will really cater to some of that and help. But oh my gosh, how have we got to our final myth of the day? Myth number 4 is around Microsoft can do everything. Is it future proof? So this, I do think this is the big one. Okay. And there is a belief that Microsoft literally can do it all, but I just want to get into it here. Is it really, really designed for comms, engagement? Is it going to be evolving to meet those needs? Is the investment going to be there to continually innovate? So this is my final myth of the day, but my question first is sort of get into this. And likewise, please continue to ask questions and discuss in the chat as well. I'm loving hearing from of you today. Is how confident, Logan, this is to you first, how confident can organizations really be that Microsoft, for example, is going to continue to invest in tools like a Viva Engage?
Yes, so I did a little bit of an exercise actually looking at Microsoft's most recent annual report. And I took a look at how often Viva, right, the employee experience side of Microsoft was mentioned versus Copilot. And Viva, I found it 4 times. Copilot, I found it 32 times. So I think that's a very clear indicator of where Microsoft is focusing. And because Microsoft does so many things well, they have other areas of focus outside of simply employee experience. So having a purpose-built employee experience platform, that's the sole focus for that company, is going to get you a lot of features and a lot of features that are really going to translate to benefits for your employees.
Absolutely. Thank you, Logan. And Robert, how about you? I mean, I think there's an opportunity here is like, what should comms leaders really ask themselves when they're evaluating, is this platform future proof? Like, how should they be addressing this? How should they be even evaluating it?
Yeah, you want to see ongoing investment in a great defined roadmap that is committed to the employee experience. Sort of like Logan was saying, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that Microsoft has dropped some hints as they invest heavily in LLM, AI, Copilot, that this seems like it might be, and I don't know for sure, but becoming sort of deprioritized for them. So you want to see names in the space that are always innovating and finding ways to, again, address these problems in a more competitive landscape than ever. How are we retaining, enabling people to connect with each other, communicate, and delight them at work?
Love that. And I'm here for the crystal ball, to be honest. And I think it's seeing those organizations that are solely focused on one thing. I can see it in lots of other markets where it's like, oh, why haven't they diversified for that? Why haven't they decided to do that? It's like, no, they've just committed. It's like, we're going to just do this one thing and really, really well. And I think that's always probably quite a good place to start. All right. I also want to understand, such a big part of understanding future proofing is around the impact of a platform. And again, it's not just switching on and knowing that it's working, it's getting into the detail here around performance, and that will help you know whether you've made the right decision, where you can actually see impact. And this is so much more than just seeing engagement or logins or access. So I want to understand a little bit around like the insights, the analytics behind a platform, like a Viva. So, and I know we'll hopefully show some of this as well in terms of how Blink's thinking about it, but how Microsoft Analytics, and Rob, I'm going to come to you first, really compare to the insights that a comms team specifically need and should want to have in a platform?
Yeah. So of course, data is the language of business today. No matter what role we're in, we want to collect as much data as we can. SharePoint, of course, has traditional metrics that you would expect in terms of number of views, downloads, etc. Viva does offer a little bit in terms of sort of the employee sentiment or sentiment analysis. But what we really want to do is we want to provide not just data, but insights, a really deep understanding into trends of how employees are feeling at the various parts of the employee life cycle. So you think about all of these sort of touch points that a employee has in their relationship with their employer. Onboarding is huge. So when you've hired someone new, as much as you're sort of evaluating them, maybe during a probationary period, they are doing the same with you, right? Did they make the right decision?
Totally.
If you think going into a new role, leadership changes, turbulent, uncertain times for the industry, retail as an example, just having really, really high turnover since COVID, having an effect on morale. So all these different moments, can we provide really detailed insights into how employees are feeling in those moments, but also in relation to different communications, change responses. So being able to see, as part of this internal campaign, employees they're more anxious, they're more confident about the direction of the company. That is mission critical. And I think a lot of organizations make assumptions here because they don't have a baseline and they're not collecting this information. Once you start doing it, there are some really earth-shattering takeaways that can help inform your strategy.
Yeah, I'm loving some of the words today, Robert. We've got mission critical, we've got earth shattering. Logan, can you top that in terms of understanding this from that that layer beyond the platform itself and the analytics and insights? What's your take on that?
Yes, I absolutely agree. We need to go beyond metrics and get to true insights. And I was actually a heavy user of Microsoft a couple jobs ago, a couple organizations ago. And that's what I observed as well. It was simple metrics. Granted, that was many years ago. I'm sure there's been some involvement, but it was very much numbers driven, quantity driven, how many people visited, what's the document storage space on this Teams or this SharePoint site. And while I haven't had personal experience with SharePoint Viva in a while, I continue to hear that validated in the market when speaking to prospects that they're looking for more out of insights to be able to make data-driven decisions. And it's further validated today. I was looking in the attendee chat and Dan mentioned that for internal comms, it's still not adequate for deskless and we don't get the kind of control or metrics we need out of it, referring to Teams, SharePoint, Microsoft. So I think there's just more that is desired from an insights perspective, getting to really granular understanding of who is engaging, what decisions can we make from this.
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me okay? Our company all hands is pretty rowdy in the background. I'm just checking. I'm still great. Super. We've got a couple of questions come in, but I actually think I'd quite like to dive into the demo. I think this would be a nice opportunity to show you firsthand how some of these experiences are really important. I think there are some good questions here around themes, etc. But I'm getting a bit of background noise, I think, maybe from you. Who knows where Robert is? Somewhere rowdy, clearly. But Logan, I said at the start, we've got a lot of feedback here that we have these great discussions, some good questions come up, but people actually really want to see the platform, especially some of these use cases that have come out. So I'm going to hand over to you and you're going to actually dive into the platform and do a bit of show and tell. So over to Logan. Oh, Logan, you're on mute. I feel like we need webinar bingo. How many times does this happen on virtual calls?
All right. I am back live. You should be seeing my screen, and we are going to get right into the demo that we promised there. Are you still seeing it?
Oh, it's just flitted off. Oh, we're back. There we go.
Now it's back. Wonderful. Let's hope it stays the rest of the time.
Little teaser, but we're good now.
A little teaser. So as it relates to myth number one that we discussed, everyone has a Microsoft license, so we're reaching everyone. If, in fact, you find that's not the case and you do need a platform that can reach everyone, regardless of whether they have a Microsoft license, regardless of whether they have email, Blink can be that. You can get people activated into the platform through an invite code, email address, phone number, workspace name. And when it comes to actual authentication, You can authenticate employees via email, SMS, one-time passcode. So whether they have email or not, they could leverage their cell phone number to authenticate them in, as well as more traditional methods like username, password, or those third-party methods that are SAML 2.0 compliant as it relates to those that might have an Entra ID and can authenticate through that method. Then, as we think about myth number 2, we need a comms tool. No, we have Microsoft. We can also talk about the more modern social experience that Blink provides and that cohesive space versus disjointed multiple applications where different elements are within different applications. So as we go into the Blink mobile application, we are brought to the home page where it's going to provide that view into other colleagues' experiences through stories, through different news and information within the feed. We have chats where we can connect and engage with other colleagues, either in one-to-one group scenarios or around shared interests. We can even call colleagues as well. So you can see the phone in the top right, which does provide that good backup out-of-band communication channel should a Teams be down where you can't reach others through. There's groups where employees are automatically brought into different groups in respective to their role, their location, their reporting manager, and they can also discover groups of interest to allow for that additional engagement and collaboration. I was reading in the chat just before we started the demo that we really need to provide a place for policies, case studies. It has to act as a hub in addition to just engagement. And that's what this hub does here, where employees can access key resources and information. We know that frontline employees, they might not need everything that is on a SharePoint. That can be really valuable to desk employees to have access to all those documents, but frontline might need some really key resources. And if they aren't licensed to Microsoft or it's decided that Microsoft license isn't going to provide enough value to invest in that for the frontline, different critical documents can be uploaded natively within the Blink platform so that frontline can have access to it. I also just saw a chat come through from Craig. Is there a desktop view or is it app only? And we're going to the desktop view just after we scroll a little bit in the home feed to show you the different types of content. But very similar to getting access to those tools, informations, systems, Blink allows you to label those systems in the ways that employees think about it. Frontline employees have a lot of responsibilities in their day-to-day job. They might not necessarily know whether their HRIS is Workday or ADP or otherwise, so they should feel confident to go to the hub and say, if I have an HR task I need to complete, I can click My HR, and you have the freedom to label that, and that's how we get them right to their HRIS system of record. As it relates to what they're able to explore in the home feed, lots of news and information, very image driven. They can see what colleagues are sharing from a story perspective, and admins can even promote polls to get that utility and two-way feedback to connect with the frontline. Those polls can again show up in stories, but they can also show up in feed along with other information as it relates to events or critical information that allows for business agility. We have this mandatory read here that Rachel needs to address as an operator to understand a particular shutdown checklist, and admins will get information about whether she has completed this task or not based on whether she confirms she has completed that, but she can save it for later and then continually to be reminded about tasks to complete with that banner at the bottom so that she doesn't lose track of them. Utility for shift management, different weather alerts, and even multi-media beyond images. We have videos that share highlights of the week here. So I know we did have a lot of interest in also understanding the desktop view. So we definitely we'll explore that as well. We can see here very similar content, but again, structured for the best practices of web. And as it relates to integrations with Microsoft, for a desk-based employee that's getting a lot of utility out of Microsoft and might be accessing the employee experience on web, they can see an integration with their Microsoft calendar. So helping them understand what they have on the docket for today. They have a team meeting, one-on-one, lunch, have to take care of expenses, and then really providing that utility and productivity to have that federated search into OneDrive documents that they have access to. So we can see when benefits is searched here, a number of files related to benefits come up that will connect me right away with Microsoft OneDrive. Let's get to Insights page. I think we covered the most of the Microsoft integrations. The only other item I was going to show on that screen was really going to talk about the utility of data integration and how once you have that authoritative data set up, you'll be able to continuously create dynamic groups based on those attributes that you bring in. What department is somebody in? What location are they in? And as you create those groups, that's where we allow comms to be nimble in terms of communicating who they need to communicate to without the bottleneck of working with IT to get those distribution lists created, so they can create those dynamic groups and have those to communicate with and then dig into also from the analytics side. So as it relates to analytics and going beyond metrics to true actionable insights, that's where you can see in this type of platform, we have a lot of deep analytics that can break down by various employee attributes, whether it's what group are they in based on the custom groups that you can create in Blink, those dynamic groups that consistently update, departments, company, job title, who their line manager is, what their location is. So for example, if we were trying to assess monthly active users and then understanding breakdown by location, we can see Miami in the last 30 days is 99%, a percent higher than the baseline of 98. But when we look to Austin, Texas, we're going to see that 75%. So how can we take learnings from Miami and create value for employees in Austin, Texas? So utilizing that data to understand what's going on, dive into areas that we can improve that employee experience. Similar for understanding posts. Yes, we have some quantitative metrics, but we also go beyond that to understand who is posting and what is really excelling in terms of the employee experience. So not only do we showcase who are the top posters, who are the top commenters, but as you drill into all posts, if commenting and engagement and getting people involved in the platform is a goal, you can filter and organize this by which posts are garnering the top comments. And if you see, there's a theme of celebration here. How can we encourage more celebratory posts to really drive that goal of engagement? And last but not least, last in terms of what we'll show today, there's of course a lot more as it relates to employee intelligence and insights, is really understanding where the gaps are. It's great to have metrics, but that doesn't tell you where the gaps are, what you need to do next. So in this instance, we can actually assess groups not using that hub, using that resource center where they have access to key tools, systems, information, PDFs, resources. And so we could dive into, all right, well, if we want these different organizations, these different groups of employees engaged with the platform, what could we surface on the hub that would be valuable to them? So those are different areas of insights that can help. And I'll just reiterate as we wrap up the demo that the Blink difference is really having that modern social platform that people want to gravitate towards that is equally served up both for desk-based and deskless frontline employees, and that we empower communications, IT, HR, employee experience leaders to really showcase their impact and then also have the information they need to adjust and enhance their strategy with the employee intelligence through those actionable insights that we just took a look at.
Logan, thank you so much. And I think, even just showing a little teaser of the platform there, we have got some good questions. So I'm just going to do a few questions and we'll do a very quick wrap up because the time has just flown by.